Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again for the PSNI Global Alliance webinar today with Williams AV for an overview of their contactless communication systems. Let me introduce Nancy Blanchard, our new Director of Programming for PSNI and Consultant Liaison for Williams AV. She will join by other Williams AV team members. All participants will be in the listen-only mode. Please use the chat box for your questions to the right of the screen. We'll get to as many of them as possible. We want you to know that the webinar is also being recorded, so you'll receive a copy of that as soon as it's available. With that, let me introduce Nancy.
Thank you. And thank you to all that have attended our last session, which was held on August the 26th, discussing open captioning and what markets, applications, discussing what is open captioning, and viewing our latest product called Caption Assist. So for today's session, we're going to discuss contactless communication, which is essential in our everyday lives, whether it's attending school, religious services, work, recently graduations, and hopefully concerts and other activities. We have today Tony Strong, who is our ADA spokesperson, and one of our sales leaders who will discuss solutions to consider for these activities in a safe manner. So take it away, Tony.
Great, thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you to all those at the PSNI Alliance for setting up this time. My name is Tony Strong. I'm with Williams AV. We've been here for, 11 years now, and many of you I've met in the field, but we've learned quite a thing or two. And here today to talk about a lot of these solutions that we currently have technologies for, but we may be using them or needing a different application. So we'll be covering a lot of that today in technology-based solutions for the new contactless communications. I think you'd agree that today's environment poses some unique challenges. And here we have some clever individuals creating new solutions for these current phenomenon, the social distancing and things like that. But as we all find our pathway to how to navigate this new normal, and I guess I'm going to boycott the word new normal because I don't really think it is normal, but it definitely is something that we haven't experienced before. And hopefully, as we make our path through this, the social distancing thing may continue for some time, but we're going to find solutions and we're going to find ways to work around it. So in this new condition, shall we say, of the 2020 year of COVID, we're seeing mask mandates and social distancing mandates that are working through both the commercial space and the personal space. We've got modified workplace layouts. As you go to your Home Depot, you're seeing the big plastic screen now. Your bank and your grocery store also are making new behaviors and these physical barriers and these guides, red dots on the sidewalk that are 6 feet apart, these things likely will continue. But as they do, it's also creating new paths for business to creatively solve these problems. And I think that one thing is true, that we are really no longer able to maintain our old patterns of behavior. The days of 900 people at a concert right now are gone. Houses of worship are having to change their paths of business and how we communicate. And those are creating new challenges. We've seen business channels that have completely changed lanes and or have dried up completely. But that's also presenting new challenges. And with those new challenges also come new solutions. So in the experience that Williams Sound and Williams AV has had in the last 40 years of working with the hard of hearing, how do these new conditions affect people who are hard of hearing? How do they affect those who might have extended learning circumstances, those that might need better and more clear communication? But the technologies that we're using in those atmospheres now are also the same solutions that we can use to accommodate this, I'm boycotting the word new normal, but this new condition of COVID 2020. So I think what the truth reveals is that these conditions likely will be here for quite some time. I think there are businesses that may never go back to an in-office relationship. People are going to continue to work from home more often. I believe social distancing will continue to be a norm, that many social and commercial venues like amusement parks and these types of things where people congregate they're all going to have to find different ways to handle these problems. And in the world of audiovisual, in the social environment, the truth is we're going to have to adapt. So this seminar is based on using technologies that already exist in ways that can help us adapt to some of these new conditions, right? So many of the things that we've been experts at here in the world of assistive listening, some of these technologies can be adapted. As we mentioned, the workplace modifications that are happening are creating new challenges, and new distance learning types of things are happening with education and remote participants. We're starting to see a huge increase for those that want to do some type of a broadcast to a car. How do you accommodate a parking lot presentation, or maybe a concert that wants to do a remote presence? The world of education in both K-12 and higher ed are having to completely rethink how this hybrid classroom things are happening. Courts, which are now opening back up here, courts commonly have communications that would exist within inches of each other. How are we going to use technologies to accommodate that provision? And then, of course, for corporate and medical, for language interpretation, we no longer can have the interpreter standing feet away and whispering into a defendant's ear. So how is it that we're going to navigate these things? And these are some of the positions that we're going to help you with today. The most common thing we hear when people are wearing masks is, I can't hear you. I don't know if any of you have been to a restaurant lately, but we had a server at our Buffalo Wild Wings the other day. She was talking. I could not hear her through her mask. So this presents additional challenges for how do we present audio also to those people who might be remote presence. Today we're doing a webinar. How would we present this if this was a live classroom environment? Audio for in-person environments also is changing, so we're going to look at that today. All these applications, I think, are true that they require some type of contact-free audio delivery. In other words, we need a way to take what used to be person-to-person contact, and now we need a way to communicate but still create comprehension. And then, of course, the complications that sanitary issues have had for public spaces. So all of those are addressed in today's webinar. There are several different modes of technology that we'll be talking about today, from Wi-Fi to an open captioning, where you're putting a live speaker's word on screen, giving visual cues, to communication, as well as a digital point-to-point broadcast, as well as intercom. So a lot of these new curtains and plastic shields that have come into play now might need some type of a microphone support where you never needed it before. And then, of course, infrared for privacy, security, and multiple instances of deployment. So let's look first at Wi-Fi with social distancing. I think that it's true that if we can get audio from an environment to the person's personal device, that solves two problems. Number one, we solve the problem of having to hand out a receiver with an earphone or headphones, which might be uncomfortable for some. But we also let people now use their own device with an app and their own personal earphones. So if we can get audio to the Wi-Fi, we avoid the receivers, we bring in a BYOD, and then now users that are using maybe a Bluetooth connection to their hearing aid or a Bluetooth connection to their jawbone can bring Wi-Fi audio direct to the cellular or the tablet, and then Bluetooth from the tablet either direct to the car speakers or direct to your hearing aid or direct to your jawbone or wireless mic system. So Wi-Fi is a great addition, and so the Williams Wavecast line covers a bunch of those applications in several ways. There's a single channel unit, which is inexpensive and affordable for a single channel application. We can use a couple of these boxes on a single network. Excellent for a unicast where I might only have 50 or so users, like maybe a house of worship. In larger commercial applications like casinos, they're really picking up on this 8-channel option, which means that now on the network, I can have a couple of TV audio broadcasts where I can see a simulcast from Raceway Park or Fenway or maybe the horse races or whatever happens. The new kind of technology Williams is working with is that now these Wi-Fi solutions are all enabled in our FM and our new IR products, which means that these traditional FM products, long used in every single school auditorium and baseball field and football stadium around the country, this classic FM transmission now also contains a Wi-Fi encoder. So that means I can get users on their personal devices now participating with our local audio streams, and that's all new within the last year. So for receiving options, you've got your smartphone, you've got a tablet, or the world's first Wavecast receiver that we'll talk about in a second. So the parking lot system that we've talked about uses a standard FM or Wavecast broadcast transmitter with your local network and a couple of outdoor access points. So this means that now you can broadcast a Wi-Fi signal from the roof of your house of worship or the roof of your concert, presenting audio to smart devices which are connected to the network, and they can broadcast, depending on range of your access points, 600 to 800 feet. So you can include a lot larger audience, and they can use that phone then to connect to that car audio system. The app is a free download. It's simple. Go to your Apple or your Android store, download the Wavecast app. Companies can put their own logo there. And of course, you can brand or name your broadcast channels if you've got multiple types of applications. So the Wavecast receiver can be enabled for those that might not have some type of a smartphone. We agree that technology challenged individuals, like my mom, for example, doesn't know how to spell smart in smartphone. So how are we going to accommodate her in this environment? So the Wi-Fi receiver is now a handable device that you can go ahead and hand out should that be a solution. Remembering that all of these things that we've just talked about are all current solutions that you probably have installed in many public facilities for ADA compliance. So you can go to the ball field or to the movie or to the public venue of your choice and ask for what is the ADA solution, and they should be able to give you something. Now, let's talk about I think the biggest wave that we're seeing right now in this new pathway is a call for point-to-point communications, needing full duplex. So we have a system called DigiWave, which offers a full duplex communication. So this full duplex used in the social distancing application lets a speaker stand remotely from their audience, including possibly even an interpreter. So those in the audience can either hear the main presenter or hear their interpreter. In an installed environment, guess what? They didn't supply any conduit or any network capabilities in this operating theater. They need to have something they can bring in a box and drop on a table. So DigiWave works with a portable microphone. Now you have a portable two-way broadcast, including others that might be just in the next room, as long as they're within the range, the 600 or 800 feet, whatever your range limitations are from the broadcasting. So for social distancing applications, this has become paramount for courtrooms. So we talked about that judge sidebar situation. We talked about defendant communication. With a COM4 system, this is 4 pieces of full duplex communication. So everybody uses an earbud or a microphone headset of their choice. If I have a remote situation, I actually can just drop a unit in the middle of a conference table and pick up 15 local voices and then broadcast that to any of our listeners. So these types of systems are helping to accommodate jury rooms where juries no longer have the ability to congregate next to each other. How do we solve that problem? An interpreter can no longer sit directly next to a defendant and whisper in his ear, so he's got a device that he needs to use. The court interpreter or the court reporter, the man or the woman sitting in the back of the room or in the side of the room, they need to get local audio support now even more than ever. For corporate boardrooms or educations, we can deploy multiple devices as an audio source pickup now, where guess what? We've never had microphones in this room before. We've never had to do audio support. How are we going to do this in a 30-person boardroom chamber now? And then, of course, that judge attorney sidebar we've covered. So the DigiWave, again, is a full duplex, two-way, everyone hears everything all the time, and multiple peoples are in the same conversation, whether they're 2 feet apart or 20 feet apart, doesn't matter. We also have ADA kits for public and social distancing in the FM realm. So this is an example of an FM ADA kit where I might have a local transmitter with a conference style microphone, and now I go ahead and drop that transmitter on the corporate boardroom table, and now I have several remote listeners that are either in the same room or in the next room able to participate and actively listen in on those conversations. In the medical realm, we talked about the complications of the mask. So several of these kits in several different configurations. Here's an example I wanted to bring up because this young girl, Ashley Lawrence, actually created a solution so that people who are deaf can actually lip read. So think about this. Now that masks are mandated everywhere, what if you're a lip reader? How do you communicate? How do you create comprehension, personal connection, transfer business information to somebody that actually needs to lip read? So we thought this was a very creative solution, and this is allowing people that actually require lip reading services to be able to work with people. And in the light hazmat solution or a doctor on rounds, now these people, when they're 20 feet behind you in a crowded hallway and there's 16 students, how can a doctor communicate clearly? And you need some type of two-way broadcast. The DigiWave system helps to accommodate that. In the hybrid classroom, this is a big one. We've had several universities and distance learning application people come to us and say, how do I solve this problem? I've got people in room and I've got people who are remote. We've never done this before. How do we do this? And so now with a two-way broadcast modem, this will allow a remote participant using a crossover cable here, because remember, these guys have to talk out and go to microphone in. This DigiWave transceiver is a two-way communication device with this crossover cable. This now allows this local broadcast to broadcast everything that the web presence people say directly to the educator's ear. And when the educator speaks, all of that communication goes right back to the web audience. And when the remote clients or in-room clients need to hear, they can use a receiver, or if they even need to participate, they can each have transceivers as well. So this is a great application for how education and higher ed and local services are using a portable two-way communication to create the pathway for comprehension. And that's the important part here, is how do we get people to understand our message, our marketing message, our education message, my training message? And you know what? How do I do that in 3 languages? Okay, so with a local connection to a soundboard, the DigiWave Connect box allows now a full duplex, full party conversation to be connected directly with other audio sources like a webcast or a YouTube video or classroom or the main PA speakers, however you choose to do that. So these are great solutions. There's all kinds of different headsets and different types of muff cuff headsets and single ear and dual ear microphone headsets. And the transceiver also comes as a kit paired with your choice of rechargeable receivers or alkaline receivers. So this is important if I've got only alkaline batteries and I need to go ahead and put another 40 hours of use without having to go down for recharging. Remember, this will take 2 to 3 hours to recharge. That alkaline solution has been preferred for a lot of the interpretation events where they need to quickly change batteries and get back on. So that's the DigiWave stuff. Now, I forgot to remind you ahead of time, if you have a question, please use your question window and enter in that question while it's fresh on your mind, and then that way Haley will help us look at those during the Q&A time. So if you've got any questions about this education type of application, and I'm guessing there's at least 4 of you right now that are saying, yeah, what is it? How do I get it? Where do I find it? Those types of things, address that in your Q&A window for later discussion. So let's talk about Talk Perfect. Williams, now with our new partnership with Ampertronic, has brought in a number of great opportunities. We're seeing plastic barriers go up. We're seeing curtains in the golf cart between golfers to keep them distant, so that a vinyl curtain now might not be used in your golf cart, but at banks, at reception windows, at Home Depot. These intercom solutions from Talk Perfect allow a speaker to be heard on the outside of the glass and a speaker and microphone to be picked up from the inside of the glass. These kits come in all kinds of different sort of solutions. It's a small and easy interface right here. And if I have a T-coil equipped hearing aid, I might even have an induction loop system that is installed directly in the counter, meaning that when somebody comes up with their hearing aid, they push the T-coil button, and now audio from my inside the wall speaker is now presented directly to the ear of your outside communication partner who needs to hear. So all kinds of great communications here with this. These are in reception areas and service desks, banks and post offices, ticket counters, information kiosks, anywhere that you find people are separated by a physical barrier. These options are available too. And if you have questions on that, please let us know. Different styles of microphones inside and outside the glass. But these things are now a necessity where they might have just been a preferred option before. The amplifiers are simple and easy to connect with simple audio interfaces, everything you need. And they also, as I mentioned, include an induction loop category. So let's talk about induction loop as the ultimate touchless communication. Loop has been around for a long time, and induction loops are actually installed in the presentation environment, either a foil tape wire under the floor or maybe saw cut into the concrete if it's new construction. Now my local speaker on stage, audio is presented to an amplifier which charges a wire in the floor, and this user now, without any receiver, without any headphones, without having to go to anybody and ask for permission to hear, uses their T-coil enabled device, and they flick this to T-coil mode, and anybody in this environment now can hear the audio wirelessly. So a CEO in the boardroom with a loop walks in and clicks on his hearing aid, voila, he can hear France on the distance video telecommunications call. A user at a church or a house of worship or a hotel ballroom. This technology has been around for 30 or 40 years, folks, but it really is just gaining a lot of ground now as the current building codes have adopted the acceptance of this technology. We're seeing more loops go in now than ever before. Even though the magnetic field stuff is 30 or 40 years old, the technology is brand new. The amplifiers are brand new. The systems in development for commissioning and the ANSI standards for measuring and metering are all brand new. And the idea here is that every listener using their T-coil device has the exact same experience, whether they're in Staples Center or whether they're in the Metropolitan Opera, wherever they are, that T-coil operates in the exact same experience realm. So there are some additional considerations when you're looking to install a loop. Typically before construction or at the time when you're removing carpet, that wire to be laid in the floor is a great opportunity to consider a complete contactless free audio transmission for your environments. And again, these things are more popular than ever. Moving on, let's talk about infrared. Infrared is a great application where I might either have multiple transmission sources, such as an education environment where I've got 100 classrooms all on the same floor. How do I present a wireless transmission for 100 spaces where they don't get audio crosstalk or have a interference application? You know, the hardest thing to do with wireless mics is get the frequencies right, correct? So with infrared, since infrared is light, this light stays within the room of transmission. So I, for my end user, can have the exact same frequency, the exact same belt pack works in Mrs. Peterson's room as it does next door in Mrs. Jones' room, as it does in Tom Roberts' room, as it does in Nancy Blanchard's room. And so here, an infrared transmission for schools and for education that have multiple spaces of audio that fear a crosstalk application becomes a necessity. The other reason that infrared is great is because it's private and secure. Since it's light and it stays in the room, that courtroom now can have private HIPAA regulations or private communications in a defamation lawsuit or these types of things where it can't be picked up outside the room. So infrared, utilizing its technologies, has really boomed in the last just a few months with courtrooms. And here I see an article from the source right down here below, that courts are spending more money this year on assistive technology, both visual and auditory, than ever before. And the reason is because I think courts found that they were really lagging a little bit behind. So when they were in their closed phase during the COVID crisis, a lot of them looked at their systems and said, we just don't have the ability to communicate with the people we need to communicate with now. What are we going to do? So that's led to a lot of increase in the implementation for annotation types of systems, where I might have evidence presentation. Williams has the Annotation Pro, which is a great provider for ways to switch graphic interfaces, be able to annotate, store, capture, and log evidence files for video so that they can be reproduced later. And then, of course, this IR application, we've seen a complete boom in requests for infrared for exactly this application. So we just talked a minute ago about visual and auditory solutions. This is another visual solution that we learned is a huge marketplace. So along with audio, sometimes hearing assistance needs a visual component, right? So that's why we use PowerPoint. That's why we use webcams, so that we can point to physical things and say, you know what, this is what I'm talking about right here. So along with an audio environment, our solutions help to provide better comprehension and understanding that compensate for bad sound and poor room acoustics, or maybe somebody that's very soft-spoken as a presenter. I have a big booming voice, so you might not have heard those last words. But here's an example of visual congestion. If you look at those last two lines, that's visual communication, where there's background noise that your brain right now is having to audio process harder to visually seek out what is the meaning of these words on the screen. So here we see where comprehension is actually increased by using some visual cues. Now that led to the Caption Assist software, where I have a live speaker on stage and the words get presented to the screen. So the Caption Assist is a revolutionary new hardware and software solution that leverages the power of Google AI. I'm sure that you all use speech to text in some capacity on your smart devices. That's a limited example of the Google AI interface. We have a licensed contract with Google utilizing the AI engine specifically for up to 27 languages and 57 different dialects. So this means that this is a broader application than before. And here's how it works. If I have a live speaker on stage, that audio goes out to the Google AI cloud, that voice is converted to text, that text comes back and is presented as text on the screen for your environment, for your local audience. Or what about a remote Zoom audience or your GoToMeeting clients? Now you can put every single word that you say can also be reproduced as words on the screen. And then next you'll find that that's going to be archived. So as we look at this Caption Assist, we have voice that goes out to the cloud, speech to text, and the words come back on the screen. Here's a great picture of us in our room right now today. If I was using the Caption Assist, you actually would see the printed text right along the top of your screen. But guess what? That's an extra charge for today. So you saw that last week. And maybe we'll do another one on that Nancy led. So these applications provide visual solutions as well as audio solutions. So let's talk about Pocketalker. And a lot of people in the integration world or in the consumer space say, I just want to hear in a restaurant or in a car or these types of things. So what the Pocketalker is a non-audio connected, no AC power. It's a local amplifier that can take a local conversation speech and amplify it for a listener that may have trouble discerning because of background noise or loud audience noises and low sounds. The Pocketalker is a simple amplifier with a local microphone. This allows you to hear maybe the front seat conversation from the back seat of a car. It allows you to hear in an important communication environment, like maybe your doctor. And a lot of times these are available at your disability services office for a K-12, where a student actually carries one of these with them in their application, or a medical provider has these as a resource. So it's a personal communicator. They're typically less than $200 available on the internet. Williams Sound Pocketalker comes in several different sizes and flavors, but again, it allows you to communicate in environments what might be typically challenging. Now adding masks and the COVID condition, Pocketalkers have been more popular than ever. So this is a photo of the newer application. You can use a T-coil connection to it with talking directly to your hearing aid or plugging in a headphone and earphone. And there are several different microphone applications as well. At some trade shows, we have guys who actually will run around with a microphone, right? And they just hold the microphone out like this for you. And as you're speaking, your voice is being amplified and bringing audio direct to their ear. So that's increasing their comprehension and awareness. So here we are at the Q&A section. I've got a number of different kinds of questions happening, and I'm going to turn it back over to Haley. And Haley, let's open it up for the Q&A. What have our audience discovered was of interest to them today?
Sounds great. Great information. A couple of questions have come in. So first of all, how does one go about getting a demo of any of the products that you have displayed today?
Sure. Well, so demonstrations can happen in any one of two ways. Number one, you can get hold of a local integrator that carries the Williams AV brand. A lot of times those solution providers are already involved with your school or your library. Many times you can contact us directly using the info at Williams AV website address. That will be a great solution for you. We forward that on to our local reps. We have manufacturers reps, who some of which are on the line today. Thank you very much for our manufacturers reps. And they provide local support and system service for an organization or possibly an end user that might want to be evaluating some of these products. We also have an 800 number, and I should have had it on the screen, but I'm going to give that. It is 800-328-6190. And that is the number that you would call for 800 support. That'll come to my customer assistance. And also, you should be able to reach out directly to your PSNI affiliate. So there are several relationships carved out with PSNI that give you special circumstances. So take advantage of those relationships in your local PSNI affiliate. Next question.
Yeah, so some people are curious as to the cost of DigiWave. Curious if they need to go through distribution or if Williams ever sells direct.
So two answers to that question. Yes, we want you to be able to acquire the solutions and evaluate them. Typically, we do not sell direct. We sell through our integration partners. There are some schools and relationships that pre-exist with your existing PSNI affiliates. So again, I would refer you to the local PSNI person for special pricing considerations, and we would direct traffic through them.
Thanks. Regarding Caption Assist, does Caption Assist to clients, does offering Caption Assist to clients events mean that the venue needs dedicated high-speed internet to connect to the Google AI Cloud?
So that is an excellent question. Yes, as part of the solution using the Google AI Cloud, it does require an outbound internet connection. Typically, a typical corporate application for internet is usually good, and that 2 megabyte download speed is sufficient, and usually a 700 megabit upload speed is sufficient to handle that device. And again, if you need more information on that, your local PSNI affiliate has a number of IT experts ready to help in those applications. Next.
And you just said it, but who does installation on all of these types of orders?
You got it right there. So our channel is diverse, and the PSNI folks in your neighborhood have special relationships already set up and channels already set up to get you product, get you evaluation, and get you preferred pricing.
On Caption Assist, you did mention that you didn't use it today, and you said it was an additional cost. Can you elaborate on that?
So there are several different ways to interface. Let me just skip back up to this. there's a cost for the hardware. That's a one-time purchase. The app or the software piece is free from your app store, so that allows you to control and initiate a session and bank airtime. So the Caption Assist, just like a cellular device or a tablet you'd buy from Best Buy, comes with airtime. So you purchase airtime, that airtime is banked in your device, and when you initiate access to Google AI, that's when the billing would start. That's done directly through this application store, billing directly to the Apple iOS or the Android store. This hardware starts at about $4,000 for a United States dealer, right, for United States dollars. And the application is so cheap, it really averages out to about $6 an hour for putting words on screen for your professional event. If you use it for 30 minutes, the 7 hours and 20 minutes is banked for another month when you use it for an hour, and then you might use it a week later for 4 hours. So all that information is banked. That gives you a great way to communicate with your audience. Did that answer that question?
I believe so, but if not, please feel free to use that question again. A whole lot of questions regarding whether they will be receiving a copy of this presentation, which I can go ahead and tell you, yes, you will within 24 hours after we close. Let's see, is the Wavecast stereo? I'm not sure.
Great question. So a lot of the assistive listening modalities are in a single channel mode. For example, for somebody that's hard of hearing, we don't want bass and drums in this ear and vocals and keyboards in this ear, because a lot of times the damage occurs in one ear or the other. So most of all of our systems are presented in a mono format. Wavecast is the same. So if there is a left and right channel together, it would be summed as a single audio channel through the Wavecast system. So yes, single channel, not stereo.
And back on the Caption Assist, who pays for the $6 an hour? Is it the user or the presenter?
Great question. So when a box is deployed and hardware is installed, the user would be the environment that is using that. And so that might be with a dedicated device that handles the connection, or a personal device, or the presenter who actually uses the iOS app and starts and initiates that call. So it's whoever owns the device that has the airtime affiliated to it, which is bought directly with the either the iOS or the Android store. That's who's responsible for the billing. It's all through Google, iOS or Android store.
Okay. Will Caption Assist work in UC or VC environments, and has this been implemented anywhere?
So with video conferencing, we actually did the video conference for you guys last week, where we had the Caption Assist running on our remote video call. So all of the users on the far end all saw our words across the screen, and it works really, really well for that. So the answer is yes, it can be used for that. There's an additional piece that we use called the Williams AV, like an MP3 adapter, and we can talk more about that as you talk with your PSNI affiliate and get a local box on site for trial. We'll figure that out.
That webinar is also available on demand, and you will see that in this follow-up email with the recording of today's webinar.
Yay. Great show, guys.
Also, final question here. So what is the latency in the Wavecast?
Great question. So with regards to anything over Wi-Fi, obviously the network has a role. So the hardware itself applies virtually no latency, maybe 20 to 30 milliseconds as that Wi-Fi encoder. The rest of the latency is really the responsibility of the network. So there are network switches and conditions which can enable a very low latency. The bottom line is this: if it's a real-time application where I'm looking at a pastor on stage or I'm watching a TV screen, the lip sync has to be real-time. Otherwise, it's not a viable solution. So yes, in both unicast and multicast modes, we're able to get real-time communication so that you can see lips speak and get audio direct from your device, direct to your ear in a real-time fashion. If it's 30 seconds behind, it's useless, right? So yes, it has to be real-time lip sync. Yes.
Great. So again, a lot of questions on pricing and who the local integrator in their territory is. We can work with you on that to send you that information with the Williams team and PSNI Global Alliance. With that, back over to Tony, Tommy, and Nancy.
Nancy, is there anything you would like to add? I think you're muted there, Nancy.
Hi, sorry about that. No, I was just saying to thank everybody for attending today, and thank you, Tony.
Well, you know, we'd like to thank everyone at Williams AV. You're a wonderful partner for PSNI. PSNI has 82 members worldwide. A few of the questions today are, where do you buy it and how much does it cost and all that? PSNI is an association of systems integration companies worldwide. You can go to www.psni.org. There's an affiliate locator on our website. If you're a PSNI affiliate, our program with Williams AV is listed on our intranet under preferred vendor programs. Our program with Williams is a global program. So as we deal with international logistics, as we deal with the enterprise opportunities, which certainly will apply with this particular product line, Williams AV and PSNI have worked diligently to put a program together to support those types of initiatives. I would encourage all of our members to reach out to your local Williams AV regional representative. If you don't know who that is, Nancy Blanchard will be more than glad to connect you with them directly. I also want to thank Peggy Stanberry, the marketing coordinator for Williams AV, and obviously Haley Klein, PSNI's communications and marketing director, for making this meeting possible. You just can't do this type of thing without them. Our next Global Vendor webinar will be next Wednesday morning, September 16th at 10 a.m. Cenex will produce a program on financial services and back to business solutions for the COVID period. Unless anybody else has anything to add, on behalf of the PSNI Global Alliance, thank you for joining us today. This concludes our webinar. Goodbye, stay safe, and mask up. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom.